Yeah. Well, all right. So, no, I love this topic that we're going to talk about: third party tools, third party widgets, subdomains. This is where your shoppers are disappearing to. And when I say disappear, I don't just mean the analytics and the reporting, but also all that data that should be collected and stored and used for remarketing, better segmentation, and smarter messaging out to the customer. So um, Brian Pash actually went over this in his recent study. He was actually speaking on CBT News the other day too, and so I think that study he did was pretty awesome. Are you trying to pull it up, Chris?
I am trying to find it.
All
Let's
right,
see
cool.
here.
Well, while you're doing that, the whole premise is that dealership sites are full of third-party tools, and some of these tools are embedded into the web page where they're at the same level. If you think about levels, okay, there's actually, for the tech people, if you remember, Z-index, right? It's kind of what layer it is on the web page. And so if you think about all of these aspects, right? What are these conversions? You start to realize that there are hard conversions happening in all these different places, and then you even have engagement measurements that are also happening in these potentially third-party tools, payment calculators, uh, appointment setting for your service, looking at photos. All of these things can be third-party tools that sit on your site. Now, like I was getting at, there are, if you can imagine layers, okay? So just think about paper layers on top of your website. If you kind of see the actual widget on the same page, it's on layer 0. It's there along with the rest of your site. But there are times where the actual user is inside of a second layer. They don't see that they're in a separate place. And you may not know that they've disappeared into that because you've been using a trade pending widget or a third party trade in tool, a chat tool, and the user's in there, and there's all this data being collected, but you're only seeing the data if they generate a full lead. But what you really should be doing is listening to every single event this person's doing. And then you have other examples where it's a completely different subdomain. So what Brian Pash is talking about here is making sure, number one, you differentiate between hard conversions. That's like the lead forms being filled out. Those you will see because those leads get posted to your CRM. But you won't see a lot of the engagement measurements being collected and being fed into the shopper profile. So let me show a quick example of what I mean. But Chris, do I make sense so far? Because I know I just rambled. It's that espresso.
Yeah. So I want to clarify, when a third-party form is like fully submitted, a true conversion that gets posted, but nothing else up to that point gets shared. So like what step they get to, or even if they click on it at all, is that not tracked?
Well, what I do know is that this industry definitely does have a tendency to use Google Analytics scripts, right? So if I sign up with you, Chris, and you have a new gadget that I could use, I'll give you my GA script. You put it inside your widget for me, and that will give me a sense of just high-level analytics. But that's just the reporting of it all. I mean, just being able to see that 5 people went there and didn't finish, that's cool. But imagine being able to know who those people are and be able to bucket those people and reach out to them in specific messaging saying, you want to finish where you left off. You actually see this in travel. Don't you see that? Like you just started booking a ticket. The seats are about to run out. American Airlines reminds you to finish. Or sometimes retailers fake that it's the last thing, right? Like this is the last one. And so, I mean, sadly, in automotive, that's what we're dealing right now. It is potentially the last one of that make model that the dealer has. So it's very important to know that. So you're right. You could go into those environments, those isolated places, and then not have the tracking, and then not bridge the data. So let me show you what I mean by that. So here I'm going to take this website, Stockton Hyundai. one of our customers, and they have, your typical dealership site, and you could drill into the cars that they have, right? So let's go ahead and let's actually just go and look at some of the accents here. And so they've got 4 here. And when I click into one, I'm still on the dealership site. So you could see up at the top, I'm at StocktonHyundai.com, right? And then if I want to customize my deal, in fact, wait, let's do that. So now I'm in like a image experience, right? And this could be a third party that's loading it. Maybe it's the web vendor, but these are all events worth measuring based on what Pash says, and I totally agree with that. But let's go ahead and close this chat and customize my deal. So notice what just happened.
Subdomain.
Subdomain, exactly. And this is a popular one, really awesome. We like the Roadster product. Yeah, we love how clean it looks and the experience of it all. Now, what just happened is my entire experience, me as a person that is known and all this data is being collected about me, is now completely isolated. It's as if I'm a brand new person. And when I click around in here, if the data from this experience isn't being fed into the other data set, how do you get a true full picture of this consumer? So it's not just about conversions. It's also, like you said, leading up to maybe not even converting. What were all the cars they looked at? So they looked at 2 over here, 3 over here. So they really looked at 5. But what we see a lot is that the dealer only sees the 2 that was on the main site.
So, yeah, so they might go into Roadster looking at an accent and then look at like 3 different VDPs that could be nothing related to the accent, and you have no idea.
You have no idea. So when you're sending them retargeting on Facebook, display ads, maybe some emails, we obviously send emails based on what cars you looked at, very much like what you get from like Home Depot or Best Buy. That's where I get them from. But basically, we do need a full picture. We need to know that you were looking at the accent and looking at the Kona, no matter where you were. And we need to segment you into those buckets, and we need to email you with the content about both of these cars, because we really don't know. And we don't see that happening.
Yeah, maybe now's a good time to show our platform a little bit. So this concept of a shopper profile, shopper journey, it's pretty popular in like the digital marketing world. Are there other people in this space building shopper profiles, like outside of a CRM? Because obviously a CRM, you're going to pull up the contact and whatever data is getting posted in there will be there. But what about the way our shopper profile is built?
Yeah, so just so I could at least make sure that I show what it is we're talking about, I'm going to go to an example shopper profile, and I'm actually going to go to a shopper profile of the site we were just on. So let me just turn on some. We have a data shield that protects PII and so forth. So this is going to help us share this more easily. So what I'm looking at is actually a bunch of people. Now, mind you, sorry for the blur. It's real. There's real data here. It's just protecting personal information. But if I actually go, let's go to the next page, or let's just open 25 of them. And let's go down here to someone who's kind of looked at a certain number of cars, visited many times. What you're actually able to see here is, this is interesting. This sometimes happens, Chris, when it's a kiosk in the store, and that's why that's happening. And we still collect that data, but let's see here. Let me find another example.
2 and 2.
2 and 2. So let's see. So this person came in from a specific campaign, looked at a specific car, and then filled out a form. And we understand this. Now, we have way more complex profiles. Like, these profiles could go on for months collecting information. But what's really interesting is it spans the digital retailing tool and the main site. So whether you disappeared into Roadster, came back out, went back in, it doesn't matter to our profile. It
Mhm.
shows that entire journey across all sites and widgets,
Mhm.
including every single event you do. So sometimes you're looking at cars, sometimes you're chatting, sometimes you're calling. So we have different sort of bubbles. I started kind of calling these events by their colors, but we have green and blue, and blue is clicked on a retargeted email, white is made a phone call, and we have a call tracking tool. And again, when we think about third-party tools, when you track everything with either the events, or you put phone numbers in more places just to track if the user picks up their phone call. I don't know if QR codes are going to start to become more prevalent as well. In all of those cases, those are the third party conversions and events that need to be tracked so that you could do more with your first party data.
Nice. Did you want to touch on the segments a little bit? So we put people in segments based on a whole lot of different criterias. So how did these third-party widgets kind of tie into these segments as well?
Yeah. So when you, let's say you came to the main website and you looked at, like you said, the accent, and then you went into the Roadster environment and you also looked at a Kona and, another few vehicles of different types, even an SUV, a crossover, and so forth. Well, what's important is when you're segmenting these people, right? And this means, like, who are the people that have searched for new cars, who have looked at used cars, who have visited 2 times. There's something about visiting 2 times versus three that's worth targeting for. Are you a service related person? Did you go to the finance section? If you notice, we're actually pushing these into all these third party systems. And we have some work to do. I'll tell you, iOS 14.5 has kind of changed some of that. So we have some server to server work to do on the Facebook end. And we'll talk about that on a later session. But what we do with this information is help dealers retarget those people. But if it only has half of the information, it doesn't include, remember, if that person who came in looking at accents, he's going to be in this segment. But
Mhm.
what if they looked at the Konas within the Roadster environment? Well, luckily, with Orbee segments, they'll actually be put into both the accent and the Kona, regardless of where they looked at it. And then the retargeting, whether it's Facebook or email or Google display, they can leverage that information to show that relevant ad. Because what you don't want to do is get stuck on the fact that this person saw an accent and they really started liking the Kona, and you've been marketing the accent for the next few
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. There's nothing more annoying about advertising that is just not suited for you. You're like, how
Yeah.
come they don't know? They should know.
Yeah,
But
I would say, though, like, I don't want dealers to get too caught up in that either, right? Because they'll be like, oh, I don't want to email a offer to someone who already bought a car. I get offers all the time after I finish purchasing, the thing. At the end of the day, as long as it's not relevant. So that to your point, Chris, like, it has to be relevant at some point in the journey, right?
Mhm.
So maybe you bought a new house a year ago and there's a home warranty to give. That's not bad. You see the paper, you're not going to be like, I don't get it. Why would I get this? I'm renting an apartment. So it's one thing to be at least relevant in the timeline of their journey. It's another thing to be way off base altogether. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's important to not overthink that, but definitely use some basic technology that's out there, like Orbeez, to segment people and be able to speak to them more holistically.